Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Okay, but we can never do this again.
Very good, very good. This is a horror movie podcast where we get together and we discuss a horror film that we watched. This episode we're going to be looking at the directorial debut of Dave Franco, the slightly lesser known Franco brother, I guess. Is that a fair assessment?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Heir to the Franco Empire.
So, yeah, The Rental is a film starring what's his face? I just said his name a minute ago. Dan Stevens. Dan Stevens is in here. Alison Brie's in there. Alison Brie, of course, is Franco's. I think they're married. If they're not married, then they're dating. But
they better be.
What? Why? I'm confused.
I don't know the way they're going on about. I hope they're married.
What? I'm sorry. Are they overly affectionate in public? From what you've seen, I don't recall any of this, but all right. Okay. So we'll start spoiler free as we always do. Tim's in one of his moods. This is a film about two couples, the two guys of which are brothers as well. So it's these four characters who go to a rental, an Airbnb style place for the weekend. They want to celebrate because Dan Stevens' character Charlie and his work partner Mina, who's his brother's girlfriend, who have got a big sailor job or whatever it is they're doing. I don't even know what their job is. I never even quite caught what their industry was, but they've got a big.
He just
client.
landed the $1 million sale.
Exactly. Are we being that harsh? Are we comparing Dave Franco's directorial debut to Birdemic this early on? That's just bold. That's a bold claim. So we go to the rental, and there's some relationship drama which we'll get into a little bit in spoiler free, but probably mostly in spoilers. But ultimately, there's someone else there. There's someone watching them. There's potential murders afoot, and so on. So I mean, it's kind of weird to talk around it because it actually takes quite a while for the movie to get to the horror stuff directly. It spends a lot of time just with the characters, so we'll sort of talk about that and how that affects things and so on. Mm-hmm. So that is the basic gist of The Rental. I will ask Tim the age-old question. How did you feel about Dave Franco's directorial debut, The Rental?
Well, I think you're missing one important part.
I am?
This. Yeah. Is it we rented it.
Okay,
that's funny.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
We rented the rental.
Okay, so I heard you like rentals, so we put the rental in your rental list so you could rent the rental and watch the rental while you're renting a rental.
Exactly.
Yes.
Who rents the rental? The rentman. That's it.
Okay. Did you like the film, Tim? How did you feel?
I thought it was good. It is I don't know if necessarily if you call this a slow burn, but it is something where it is the horror kind of comes into it a little bit late. Like all the stuff before it is very character drama-y, and I gotta tell you, like I was getting like some legit anxiety from this because I just like the tension between these two characters. It was just I was like every moment I was like, oh come on, like we all know what's gonna happen, like just do it and then like talk about it instead. But so I mean that stuff like not necessarily is my favorite kind of thing, but I thought it was compelling enough, and like like everyone's like good actors and stuff. And then I do think once the horror starts, it is pretty good, even though it is kind of like a weird I guess mix of like what the kind of first 2/3 of the movie is with this kind of last third. But I did enjoy it, I guess, like once that kind of gets going. So yeah, I would say overall a good movie, like not amazing, but I had a good enough time with it.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. I don't. I think there's moments or little things that are good. I do actually. I agree that some of the character drama is surprisingly a little uncomfortable in places in an intentional way, which tells me that Franco actually does have an idea what he's doing as a director, because he feels like he's doing some smart stuff with the characters and sort of building up to like decisions that it's pretty clear they're going to be made in some capacity at some point. I also appreciate taking time at the start of the movie to really sort of introduce your characters, make it really clear what the dynamics are between them. So it felt confident at the start in how it did that. It felt confident in how, okay, right, so I get what the relationship between the brothers is. One's successful, one's not so much. It's kind of set that up. What they think of each other's been set up. The relationships with, you know, the wife or girlfriend, you know, respectively. What everyone thinks of each other is kind of very well set up for the most part in the first like 5 minutes, which is extremely impressive, and something that a lot of horror movies could really do with, you know, learning to do. I do think the slow burn nature kind of doesn't work as well as it should, mainly because I feel like you've got two options. Either you become a horror movie much quicker and you do kind of what the movie does in the last chunk, or you have an element which is introduced quite late on in this film kind of be there for us, the audience, throughout, to sort of, you know, give us the feeling of the creepiness. I can't really talk about what I mean until I would get to like spoilers, but there's something specifically revealed later on in the film that I felt like we as the audience could have been using that as a mechanic in terms of, or more to the point, the director could have been using that as a mechanic to show some of the story, and instead, because the entire like closing credits are presented in a certain way based on something that's in the plot. And I felt like we could have been having that all movie, almost. That eerie vibe that those closing credits have. I felt it was oddly kind of missing from the actual main plot, which is weird because the main plot definitely wants us to feel this, especially later on. So I feel like they could have introduced that element a little bit sooner in the film and had the same slow burn character drama throughout, but just have that one extra layer to give it the voyeuristic kind of feel to it that the ending has.
Yeah, I think kind of the problem is that the horror has absolutely nothing to do with like what's going on with these characters, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but like you said, if that's kind of your premise, I think you have to get to the horror quicker. Like it would be fine if it was a slow burn, but the horror was related to that kind of buildup that they're going through, and obviously there is like kind of a point to it, like the way everything pans out, like, you know, it makes sense why, you know, we see a lot of that stuff, but for what it's going for, I feel like, there would have been better ways to approach it, kind of like you're saying.
Yeah, it's kind of weird as well, because the character drama that it spends a lot of time building up, most of the film, in fact, there's very little tease in the first 2/3 of the horror stuff itself, which is kind of weird, which is kind of what I'm saying I want, but I think it's kind of weird how given how much time it spends on the character drama and what it's building up between the four characters, it's really weird to me that there's not really a resolution to any of it because of how everything ends. So
that's true, yeah.
It kind of makes all that time spent on it like, okay, some of this was good just to sort of set them up as characters, but the amount of time we actually did spend on it feels kind of wasted now, that it didn't actually have any kind of resolution or any kind of like payoff other than just, you know, tensions were high while everything was going on, but there's no like, and not that everyone has to have a resolution, but I was expecting like just one character to have some kind of payoff because they went through all this, and instead it just never really matters. It's just kind of
that's a good you know, that's a good point. Like it is like a lot of setup for ultimately not much of a payoff. Like again, it is very compelling character stuff, but I don't know.
I guess what I'm kind of saying is it's kind of torn between wanting to be this suspenseful drama and wanting to be a horror movie, and I don't know if both sides of it actually kind of merge that well.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like they're not. It's not like either side is necessarily poorly made, but I don't know if.
On the contrary, I think both. Like I say, the character drama stuff is well directed, and then I think some of the creepy moments later on are actually quite well done. There's a few things where like someone's in the background, or they're solid.
Yeah, it's I think especially like horror, I feel like, you know, it can be kind of hard to do, and I'm like, you know, the horror stuff I'm surprised was I think very competent, to the point where I don't know, maybe I would have just liked to see
A whole
more of
movie.
that from the start. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like this is the I feel like it's kind of like a strange year. Like I feel like we're getting a lot of these movies that are like good but not great, and like have maybe kind of like potential in like the people working or like the premise or something that just doesn't feel like it goes quite all the way. Like I don't know, it seems kind of I don't know, weird. Which I mean, it's better than having like a year of like really terrible movies. Uh,
I
but
mean, sure.
you know, I don't know. Just something I was thinking about.
Yeah, it's kind of this weird thing where if it wants to be like more of a straight up kind of slasher movie with really like well done suspenseful kills, then it really had to like start that off earlier. And if it wanted to be a slow burn that builds up to something, then it had to either start teasing it like throughout the film, at least to us, or at the very least like thematically like tie it in. Even if the actual plot that's happening with the characters has nothing to do with what ultimately happens in the last act. If there's some sort of thematic link, then it would feel more like a cohesive movie. As it is, it just kind of feels like out of nowhere. There's it's something that I suppose in a lot of ways, like Wolf Creek, for example, kind of did that, where you have these characters going through whatever they're going through, and then things break down, and then you introduce the sort of the villainous element, and then from there. But that doesn't happen 2/3 into the movie. It happens like at the end of Act 1, which is kind of where it should happen, more or less. It should happen around that point. So
yeah, and I think there is kind of like a point he's trying to make with the end, which obviously won't really go into it, but I feel like it's something we just kind of seen done before that I didn't really like. It's hard to explain without spoilers, but not necessarily a bad thing, but also like I don't think it's like a big revelation or anything.
Yeah, it's funny because I watched Killer Kate not long ago, and
Okay.
that also featured like an Airbnb style rental home kind of for the weekend.
Okay.
And that movie was not good, but it was actually kind of funny bad in a lot of places, especially by the ending where I was really kind of getting into it, just how stupid it was and some things. The bad guy's motivation in that movie is hilarious. It's just, I mean, it's not the sort of movie that I'd want to watch again, but at the same time, I'm like, if this is one that we had done for Screams, we would have been having a field day on it. So
okay.
maybe at some point we'll do it as an episode or a bonus or something.
Enough time has passed.
Yes, once enough time has passed. It's too fresh in my brain. So it's weird because I feel like you've got this good first act setting everything up. You've got this good last act which has a lot of good horror stuff. I mean, maybe not great horror stuff, but very competent. Some nice moments that are well done. And now you've got this middle act which is still doing the character drama stuff, and that would be fine again if there was more teases as it was happening. But like I said, I think the biggest problem is that it never even thematically ties in. As I said, it doesn't really feel like it has any kind of resolution beyond the fact that they're all just kind of like in a high tense state or high emotional state when everything's going down.
Yeah,
and that's basically it. Maybe there's some great analysis. When we get into spoilers, maybe I'll try and kind of thematically come up with something. But at least on an initial viewing, my gut reaction was just kind of feels like the movie's very disjointed because of that. And because I got to the point where it was, it's only 88 minutes, which is fine. And I looked at the time, and there was like maybe 7 minutes left, and I'm like, there isn't going to be much of an ending to this. Like, because I was at the point where certain stuff was still happening. I'm like, this is going to end very quickly. There's going to be a very abrupt ending to this. And I was kind of like, that kind of sucks because it means that there's not going to be any kind of payoff to any of the actual character drama that we've had up until this point. So, as was. So, I don't think it's a dumpster fire though by any means. I don't want to be
no, not at all. No.
Too harsh. I thought it was watchable, a bit slow in places for sure. But some nice awkward tension in places. There's something as simple as the sort of the maintenance guy who's sort of giving them the keys to the rental. There's some tension with him, specifically the fact that he might very well be racist. One of the characters, of course, is Middle Eastern, and there's kind of a tense when she decides to like bring it up and kind of confront him about it. It does feel awkward. It's almost like not funny awkward like The Office, but it's kind of like that sort of more horror version of that where you're like, oh god, this is like, is he going to flip his shit and is this going to go really badly very quickly because of this?
Yeah, and it's also like that kind of like more like real world kind of racism where it's like
Yeah.
he's not a cartoon character where he's like, like spouting out like these like slurs or anything, but it's that subtle racism of him, him not accepting her offer and then kind of like not really wanting to admit it, but then you can still kind of tell like there's something there, but that I thought that was actually like some really interesting stuff.
Yeah, although I would just like to add a little disclaimer to what you just said there, that
Sure.
I do very much buy that there are the cartoon versions in the real world that
Oh no, totally, yeah,
that are
no.
just spouting.
There definitely are,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah. So kind of I guess mixed bag is kind of ultimately what I would say. It's like a mixed bag that's slow in places but has other like beats and moments that are little technical like directorial moments that are. And I'm not a big fan of Dave Franco on the screen, honestly. So if he wants to stay behind the camera, that's a-okay with me.
I think he's fine, but I mean, I feel like he always plays kind of like the same jerky kind of character. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what else I'd really want to see him in, but yeah, I mean, if he's interested,
A body bag?
I am kind of curious. What's that?
Body bag?
Body bag? That's what I want to see
Yeah.
him
It was a good
sure.
it was a good joke that fell flat because of timing. I'm sorry.
No, it was good. I'll give you credit for that. No, I am curious, like, if he has an interest in horror, if like this is just a one-off where he wanted to try it out because he had this idea, or if it is something he wants to explore more. Because yeah, again, I do think the horror stuff was pretty competent. I would actually be interested
I
to
was
see him do more.
actually pretty surprised when because about halfway through the movie I was wondering, is this like more of like a low-key thriller and maybe we've made a mistake
Yeah.
picking this for the show, and then the horror stuff got going. I was like, no, it's a horror movie, and I was actually kind of surprised just how
Totally,
much
yeah.
of a straight up kind of maybe not slasher movie, maybe that's maybe not quite the right term, but just it was a
Pretty
lot.
much, yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot more full on, someone's trying to kill them kind of thing that I was expecting, and
Mm.
I was like, oh, I wonder if he's a fan of this, or like, cause I presume given his standing as an actor in the industry, like he had a little bit of leeway in in what he gets to make, or is this just like, no,
Yeah.
this was what was on offer, this is what they'd give him money for, so this is what he's doing, or is he passionate about it? Does he
But I mean, he like co-wrote it and everything too. Like it's not like
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
like it seems like it's not like something that he just picked from a pile or whatever.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting. I mean, I very much appreciate him trying to give a lot more character to a more typical horror premise.
Yeah.
I just think the teases of the horror had to start much earlier, or that the character
Sure.
drama had to some way tie into what the horror ultimately, even not like in a literal way, but in a thematic way where, oh, it's kind of ironic that this is how they meet their end, or this is ironic how they do this because of what their whole problem was earlier on. It's something to connect them.
Yeah. Do you think he made Alison Brie audition for her role?
I mean, maybe like over breakfast in the kitchen, just to sort of tick the box to say that he'd done it. Like,
Yeah.
hey, honey, Alison, can you just give me like a line reading here whilst I'm eating my cornflakes, please? It's like, yeah, sure.
It was good to finally see her in a horror movie.
I'm not gonna lie, Tim. So we're recording this the same day that we're doing Scream 4. There was a moment halfway through this film where I realised that I'd just seen Alison Brie in another film. Like, I was like, oh yeah, we're doing two Alison Brie movies
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
weekend.
it's Alison Brie doubleheader.
She's actually quite funny. There's a portion in the middle where she's taking some Molly, and she's the only one who's done so, and it was surprisingly kind of funny at times, like her her reactions to things or what she was doing. It was kind of almost like a much needed little dose of levity in
Totally,
an otherwise
yeah.
very tense like social situation. So
She's probably the only like likable character in the movie.
I would argue was it Josh, the brother? I would argue that obviously he has his faults, but I would argue that he's actually
Sure.
much more likable than Charlie. Because
Oh, well, definitely, yeah.
Charlie is like this pretentious, like, I'm successful, my brother's a loser, he's never going to like make anything of himself. And Josh is trying his best. And whenever he's like talking to Michelle, right, his sister-in-law and Alison Brie, he always comes across very genuine, like he's trying his best, and he knows he's screwed up in the past, and he's wanting to make the best of himself and improve. and his brother's just like a judgmental dick about it.
Mhm.
You know, so he's got faults, but I actually found him much more likable. Obviously, he's got some problems, which
Yeah,
yeah.
he's a little too aggressive, but I mean, other than that, though, yeah, he's like you said, he's seems to be aware of it and is like trying to like atone for what he done in the past. So there's definitely good stuff about him.
Yeah. So the music's forgettable. I can't even think of it right now.
I think there was like like I don't think it was bad, but yeah, it's not something that really like sticks with
Mm,
you.
yeah, I can't even.
Um,
I don't even remember noticing it, and not even like in a good way where it just blended in and it was like seamless.
yeah,
Just in a no, it was forgettable. I don't remember it at all.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a shame. But
It's nothing to write home about, but again, I think like if you go back and watch it, I'm sure it's fine. But yeah, I agree. I can't even really think too much of what it was like.
yeah, I would say it's. I think to sort of sum up my spoiler-free thoughts, I would say that it kind of rises above feeling like a straight to VOD movie because it has enough craft to feel a bit better than that. But but it doesn't necessarily feel like a it feels like a movie that's only okay, but a movie that doesn't feel that way because it's only on a VOD like release. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it feels like a movie that could have come out before we had VOD and all that, but just ended
Mhm.
up feeling like this, as opposed to a lot of movies that feel like they've got really good concepts, but they just have that kind of I don't know bland VOD ness to them. Uh, you know.
Yeah, I think there was like talent in the direction and the cinematography. Like it did really look good, and all the characters were like compelling and interesting to watch. So yeah, there wasn't anything that maybe sometimes comes with these VOD movies where like there's kind of like a little bit of a bland look to it, or maybe some of the acting isn't like top notch, or there's some bad CGI. Like obviously there wasn't really any need for CGI in the movie, but like you didn't really have any of those kind of problems you sometimes see in other things.
Yeah. We should also mention that Mina, she's played by Sheila Vand, who was the lead in The Girl Who Walks Home Alone at Night. So,
Oh geez, I didn't even realize that was her. Oh, that's awesome.
well, she's not skateboarding in black and
Yeah.
white. So, it's not. But it's one of those things where she felt kind of familiar the whole time. And when I saw, when I was clicking on the names before we started, and I the first thing that popped up in hers was that movie. I was like, oh, that's where I know her face from.
Oh wow. So I wonder then if in the movie was she doing like an American accent? Because I would not have even noticed.
She is American.
Oh, she is. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I
Because the girl walks home at night. Isn't that Iranian or?
technically, but it was shot in America though, so it's
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
so I assume a lot of the cast are obviously of that descent, but they're
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Uh,
she was literally born in LA.
oh.
Or IMDb.
Oh well, my apologies. I assumed that that movie was uh filmed over there as well. That's my bad.
Yeah. Well,
Cool though.
that's the weird thing. I always count that as a foreign language film because it is technically a foreign language film, but I
Yeah.
think the funding for it is actually from the US, so technically it's an American film.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
I
a
did
weird
not
one.
know that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I suppose we'll go into the spoilers then for the rental.
Mhm.
I will take this time now to thank our Patreon producers. Now, this is one of the weird things is that, obviously we record a little bit ahead sometimes.
Mhm.
So the names at the end and the credits will be up to date. The ones I say are just whatever ones are accurate when we record. So bear with me here. But so recording this in August, here are the names. Our producers. So thank you to Alison and Fordyce, Tyler Hess, to Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Board Now, Zammer Jammer, Al Tribesman, Christopher Moy, and Brett Williams. They are all $20 or above patrons on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV if you want to go over there and have a look yourself. You don't have to support us at that high though. You could support us for as little as $1 per month and you get an exclusive extra episode of Streams After Midnight for $1 every single month. There's a back catalogue now of about 20 or so. So there's a whole amount you can go and check out for that price. And of course, at the $5 tier, you get all the Screams After Midnight review episodes a day early, and you get to vote once a month as well on an episode. Although we're coming up to the Octoberthon now, so in September there's usually more than one vote coming up, and October itself will have more than one bonus episode because it's a celebration. But
that's right.
So go and have a look. I don't have to explain that whole time thing and anything else, but this is the one thing where we get so far ahead in the episodes that sometimes an episode doesn't go out for like 2 months, and by that point the list of Patreon producers can sometimes have changed quite a bit. So I'm just.
Oh, I would assume this one was going out right away because it's a newer.
This
movie,
one, I mean, this one probably is going out right away, but I'm just I'm trying to ingrain that idea in their heads. Okay.
Okay, gotcha.
Just try to ingrain that idea. I mean, that might very well just go out straight tomorrow because it's a new movie, but but anyway, so there you go. So on to the spoiler section then for The Rental. So like I said earlier, I think the first chunk of the movie does a really good job of setting up the characters. There's a really simple little thing that I really liked, especially once it sort of went going a little bit and I sort of got what it did. Is the opening scene, you have Charlie, you have Dan Stevens' character with Mina, Van's character, and they're the ones who are looking on the computer at their workplace for a holiday home, and like, hey, this place looks great, we should think about this weekend. And she's kind of like over his shoulder in a very coupley way, right? So she's sort of leaning on his shoulder like like a spouse would. And then in comes Josh, which is obviously Charlie's brother, and he kisses Mina. And there's a second where you go, wait, what? Like, I thought she was with him.
Yeah. We had this we kind of I was watching with my wife, and we're looking at each other like, oh, wait a minute, so are they not a couple? Like, this is kind of weird.
So it actually does a neat little thing where their body language actually tells us something before the characters and plot actually reveals it to us ourselves that they're close in a way that feels a bit too close for this professional relationship, and from there we get a scene at home with Dan Stevens and Alison Brie, where he's basically Alison Brie saying, "Hey, I'm proud of your brother. He's taking some night classes. He's got a job. He's doing well with Mina." And Charlie just sits there and he's like, I wouldn't call 2 night classes as going back to school. And he's an aggressive shit. And he did this. He did jail time. Like, he's just like there's nothing, which is especially grating because in the first scene when Josh came to the office, Mina leaves for a minute. And Josh says, "Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention congratulations on the big sale," or whatever it is. Again, it's very vague what they were doing.
Yeah.
But so Josh, even though it maybe wasn't comfortable, went out of his way to try and congratulate his brother on a success at his job when he's already clearly having a relatively successful life. And on the other hand, Josh is trying to make himself better and try to do all these things to improve his life. And his brother is like, nah, he's always going to be a little shit. He's never going to do anything else.
But do you think that part of that is would he always be kind of harsh on him, or is part of it because he's dating Mina, who he's obviously in love with, or at least has a thing for?
I'm going to say a little column A and a little column B. I mean, maybe it is more about jealousy or whatever, but maybe that just heightens everything. This is how he feels, but then that heightens everything. So right away, you have characters that you're sympathetic for and characters that you're not sympathetic for, and they go as 2 pairs to the rental, and they meet Taylor, who's the guy who's running the place. And one of the things that's brought up here, we sort of alluded to earlier, is that Mina tried to book this trip herself for the 4 of them, and it was declined. And then an hour later, Charlie tried to book it and it was accepted. So clearly it wasn't booked. It wasn't like it was double booked. Now, there's actually kind of later on, very late on in the movie, I think there's actually a reason for this. It's not just Taylor being racist, because Taylor's kind of confused by it when he's confronted. I think the reason for this is that the killer who's sort of luring them into a trap is a white guy, and I think it's got something to do at the end with how he kind of books the place as well, so he can come in first, or maybe he pretends to be the person who's booked the place so he can come in first and set up all his devices and whatnot. Did you get that from the end, the last chunk? No.
Wait, so I'm not sure exactly what you're saying. So wait, how does the killer or whatever booking before them? I understand that, but then how are you tying that in to Taylor's potential racism?
Right, so at the end of the movie, so we're skipping ahead here for me to explain this, but at the end of the movie, after the killer's done everything and he's cleaned up his place, we see him go to a new holiday home, right, where he's given the keys and he's welcomed in, and he he sets up all of his equipment and blah blah. And it occurred to me that the reason, so I don't necessarily think he booked it early. I don't think that works because obviously like Charlie still booked it, like it was still a thing. That's it. That's what imply that he has some control over who's going. Maybe he like is good with tech and he routes them so that he gets to see them, or something. I don't know.
Okay.
But basically, like, because he presumably shows up early. Now, admittedly, he couldn't have done this with Taylor because Taylor would have been like, "Hey, you're not so and so." But I was wondering if it was something to do with like being the same sort of like type of person as the person booking for. So you can like either pretend to be them or go in first or look less suspicious or something. I don't know, but the idea being that like if this woman booked the trip, he would look different or something,
more suspicious.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I didn't think about that, but I see what you're saying. So yeah, there could potentially be something there.
Not that I'm saying Taylor's not racist, because there's definitely a couple of lines of dialogue that come off. I think we're definitely supposed to be thinking that he is just a racist scumbag. For this part of the movie, but
yeah, but then it is kind of interesting, like later when he shows up again and he's kind of talking to Mina, it does kind of seem like, I mean, maybe he is still racist, but it does seem like he is maybe being a little nicer to her, like maybe it is because he feels uncomfortable for being called out or something.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I could see that.
I don't know. And I mean, honestly, I gotta admit, like, I do kind of feel bad for his character, because yeah, it does seem like again, yeah, he probably has like his faults, but like
yeah, he gets accused of a lot of things that are definitely not him, but by the time we get to the reveals,
and it's hard to be mad at Toby Huss, who's just an excellent character actor. He's one of those guys that kind of like pops up in like a bunch of different things, like does like a lot of like cartoon voices and stuff.
Yeah, I did not know his name, but it looked kind of familiar-ish. I mean, I have a quick look.
I feel like he has to have been in some Coen Brothers movies. He has such a like, I can't think off the top of my head, but he's had to have been. I would have
he was
put money on that.
He was in Glow with Alison Brie. It was in the 2018 Halloween.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Apparently, he was the mayor in Outcast. I don't remember that at all, but I'll take the word for it. This guy's a chameleon. He's apparently been in tons of stuff that I've seen, and I still don't really know him.
Oh yeah, I mean he's a character actor, so he's never like the main
he's never
guy, but no, I think he's always like good when he shows up though.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Oh, that's interesting. He actually voiced Todd Packer in the pilot for The Office before they cast him. So you know how Todd Packer,
okay.
so obviously Todd Packer's the other guy who shows up later.
Yeah.
But you hear his voice on like a phone call or something in the first episode. That was him.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Cool.
Okay. I've learned things. So yeah, so it's very awkward when they bring this up though. And you feel the tension. And I thought, you know what, this is fairly well directed in the sense that I'm feeling very tense about this, and it's the sort of thing where you're happy that she's confronting him. You want this to be kind of seen too, especially since Charlie's very kind of dismissive. Not dismissive. Like he's not like he keeps sort of saying, well, let's just leave it so it doesn't ruin the weekend, or this. He keeps wanting to kind of brush it away, kind of thing. But the dude leaves and. It teases that he can come back in anytime he wants, because obviously he has keys to the place because he brings over the telescope. The Alison Brie kind of said, "Oh, I wish we brought a telescope." And he's like, "Well, I've got one. I can bring it over." And he leaves it in the house without anyone ever seeing him come or leave, which is kind of creepy a little bit. But the big thing, so to get to the main plot is that so there's a lot of talking between the characters. Where Michelle and Josh will talk, and they're talking about how he's constantly worried that Mina might leave him because he thinks he's a loser and he's a bit self-conscious, and he knows that he's trying his best and blah blah. And there's a lot of chemistry between Charlie and Mina. That's like undeniable early on. So
it's so like it was really like making me cringe, just because I mean there's absolutely like obviously like there's nothing wrong with like a guy and a girl being close or being like best friends or whatever, but it's so obvious that these two like are like into each other.
Yes.
And it was like, and you're basically just waiting for like something to happen at some point.
Yeah.
And then like it sucks, especially because it's like, Alison Brie seems like very nice and likable. Like it's not like she's, constantly like putting him down, or it has any reason that he would
No,
not
in
like
fact,
want to be in that relationship.
she's even like very trusting, because Josh even brings up, "Are you okay with like Mina being such a big part of like his life, and like being this constant presence?" And she's very understanding of it. So she's obviously very likable. Josh is relatively likable. So these two other characters who are clearly going to end up doing something to hurt them, it's kind of, you do feel that tension a little bit. So so three of them take Molly after dinner. Alison Bree's like, I'm kind of tired, so she goes to bed, and the rest of them are just kind of out of it. They're, at one point, Josh, they're outside in the balcony, or the patio, I should say, and he goes back in to get a drink or something, and they're kind of together, and they're looking through the telescope, and she's like, "Oh, I think someone was looking back at us through another telescope," and then he's looks at it, but they're getting kind of close. They're kind of like right next to each other as they're looking, and you can sort of feel that thing where you kind of feel like they're well aware of how close they are to each other at all times, and they're inching just a little bit closer. But then Josh falls asleep. They end up in the hot tub, and they're kind of like,
and there's like a lot of good moments where it's kind of like, oh, we should go to bed, and then one person's like, well, I'm getting the hot tub, and you should come in too, and it's like, no, I think, and then last minute, like, you know what, okay, fine, like, there's so much stuff where it's like, no, like, follow your instinct, like, go with that first choice.
Yeah, and they're in the hot tub. They're fighting over who gets the corner that's actually doing the jet, like,
Yeah.
We've all been in a pool or a hot tub and sat on that.
I think one jet seems weird. Usually they'll have like it on opposing sides or something.
Sure.
Like I don't know. I question this hot tub.
Fair enough. I can't argue. I've never been in a hot tub specifically, but
I used to have one at our house.
Really?
Yeah, back home.
Ah, very fancy.
Yeah. It wasn't like a good one or anything, and it actually, I think it broke down fairly quickly, and we never used it again. But yeah, we used to have a pool at my old house, and then someone was getting rid of a hot tub, and we'd set up.
Very
Times.
Very special time.
Although I actually love swimming, but I don't really like hot water. So I'm not crazy about hot tubs, to be honest.
I mean, I enjoy swimming, too.
Well, you got that you got that Ness right near you.
Yes, everything in Scotland is near Loch Ness. Yes. Way to go, Tim. So they're in the hot tub, and they end up kind of fighting over the jets, and then they end up kissing, and then they sort of like separate. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go to bed, and she goes for a shower, and then he comes into the bathroom, comes out of the shower, and it cuts away essentially as they're starting to have sex. And they wake up in the morning, and they're miserable, they're hungover, and they don't want to go on this hiking trip with the other two, so they leave without them. And then once they leave, and this is kind of the part of the movie where, like, because I think there is one moment when they're in the hot tub where we see someone's like watching them on like a screen, like on like a tablet or something like that. Because one of the big things, of course, that's revealed during this part of the movie is that she goes for a shower again, and she notices like a little camera in the spout of the shower, which is impressive how waterproof that thing must be. But she notices this camera, and she gets Charlie in to look at it, and they're freaking out, and they're like, wait a minute, we can't go to the police and report that Taylor's this creepy perv who's filming everyone, because he's got footage of us having sex. Right? He's got footage of us. He's going to show it to them. We have to cover this up. We have to just ignore it and pretend it didn't happen. So it's this other thing that Mina has to sort of hold in when she sees Taylor again, because it's like, okay, not only is he a racist piece of shit, he's also got footage of her now in a shower having sex, presumably, right? Obviously, we know from later that it's not actually him.
Yeah.
He is equally as shocked by this revelation. So This is the middle part of the movie where it kind of like drags a little bit, where until there's like until Taylor comes over later because the hot tub's broken. There are some funny bits here because Alison Brie's mad that everyone else is too like sort of like tired and doesn't want to like do anything fun, and
I feel so bad for her, especially like I don't know. I feel like I've been in these situations before when like there's a couple and like one partner is really excited and wants to do something and the other person's just like, no, like such a spoil sport. And it's like, it's really makes you hate what's his face, Charlie.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, and she has some funny bits because like Taylor comes over to fix the hot tub, and there's a whole little. You might even say this goes too far, but he's like bending over to fix the hot tub, and his ass crack showing. So Alison Brie behind him starts sort of bending over and sort of pretending to like sort of fondle it and lick it from a little bit of a distance, but she's being very silly. So there's some little beats sprinkled throughout, but.
And I guess important to note that they we didn't even mention their dog, but they brought a dog to the house when they shouldn't, and it looks like it's run away or someone might have taken them. So at this point, most of the other people are kind of freaking out that the dog's missing.
Yeah, they've been looking for it. It's not until the night where they all kind of stop because it's too dark. But yeah. That's obviously the movie ramps up a little bit after this, but I just feel like this middle chunk suffers a little bit because again, I think some of the relationship drama gets a little bit. You know, Josh when he's hiking with Michelle, he tells her that because Michelle sort of explains in her meetup story with Charlie that he was technically dating someone else that night, so you know it was kind of a weird, awkward thing. And he sort of reveals that, oh, that's weird because that's the second time that happened then because he was with that previous girlfriend. He started dating her when he was already dating this other person, and it kind of puts this like seed of like mistrust in her head that this is a pattern with him rather than just this one time thing that happened with her. And all this stuff just kind of I was like, okay, you know what? Like I thought it was all set up really well. The tension of it happening was good. All the stuff after it happens where there's I don't know, this doubt and like jealousy and suspicion. That stuff I don't think works as well. It's not as hot, I don't think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's not really that entertaining, I guess. Like,
yeah,
yeah, like I guess like at least like leading up to it, like you don't really want it to happen, but like you are like kind of intrigued or interested to see where it's gonna go or like when they're finally gonna just give in or whatever, and then once they do it's like not really as exciting, and then you're just kind of like thinking about like what douches they are.
Yeah, once it happens, once the sex happens, I feel like that's the point of the movie where it really needs to start introducing the horror stuff. So that kind of takes over, but that maybe what happened comes out during everything or something, but this was also where I thought that I was really because there's a point later on in the film where Josh, I think it's Josh, is looking through the house, and it actually watches it entirely from all the cameras that's been hidden around the house, and it's really kind of eerie and creepy. And I couldn't help but feel like, why weren't we seeing these shots like throughout the film? At least from when the camera was revealed. Once the camera was revealed, I feel like we should have been seeing these repeatedly to give us this sense that someone was always watching. To give us this. It was this kind of creepy vibe, and I was like, see if that had been there throughout the film, it would have added this extra layer of the horror would have been there earlier, it would have, without interfering with the plot too much. So I thought that was kind of like it almost like, oh hey, this was a good idea. Why weren't you doing it more? Like,
yeah,
I don't know. That was one of those things that kind of stuck out to me. But the big thing that happens here, though, that we have to get to, is that Mina decides to confront Taylor. He's almost going. He actually, he says something kind where he's like, hey, look, there are no dogs things, my brother who owns the place. Like, I don't really care. I've got dogs myself. I'm not going to rat you out. But it sounds kind of like menacing, because he says like, something like, oh, we all have secrets, don't we? It's like, oh, he's implying, he's like, hey, I've got that footage, kind of thing. But he's not. He's actually just being genuine, because when she takes him into the bathroom and explains the camera, he's like, wait, what's that? And he's confused. And she's like, if you ever show that footage to anyone, we'll just call the police. He's like, what? Yeah, no, we should call the police, because I don't know what this is. I'm going to call the police. And then she starts to like fight him for his phone, because she doesn't want to go down that path for obvious reasons. Josh hears the commotion, runs in, thinks she's been attacked, and beats the everlasting piss out of Taylor in the bathtub. And he's just left there bloody. Eventually Charlie runs in and pulls him off. And whilst... there you go.
This is like when I like kind of felt bad for him. Like again, I'm not saying he's necessarily a good guy, but it's like, I mean, who really knows exactly what you know what is going on with him, and then but it just seems like so like mean spirited that he's like confused about everything, and then is like getting like beaten to death.
Yeah, of course he doesn't actually die from Josh's beating.
Right.
The killer comes in and like suffocates him when the rest are all arguing about what to do. Next, should we call an ambulance? Blah blah. And when they go back and check on him, he's dead. So they think Josh killed him. So it becomes kind of a we have to dispose of the body kind of movie. Which again, it's one of those things we're here in the middle. I think this maybe takes up too much of the movie's time. Is this like we have to dispose of the body plot? Like I was getting like I Know What You Did Last Summer kind of like vibes from what they were having to do. I was like, yeah, this is maybe like too much of this. Like them throwing it off the side of the cliff, thinking, oh, this will just look he got drunk and fell off the cliff. And then the body just kind of lands like 20 foot down on like a little ridge, and like shit, we have to knock him off.
Just like a little funny. Like I kind of chuckled.
It was funny, but I think that's kind of part of the problem. Is I don't think it should be funny.
Yeah.
Like
no, it's true.
because there's a moment where they get like a big boulder and they're going to they throw it off together to try and like knock him off, and it just sort of clips the top of his head, and it actually made me laugh because it was like so like violent looking, but at the same time kind of like a big whiff on their part, and I was just kind of like I don't know, like the tone's really starting to fall apart for me here because I'm laughing at something that I don't think was supposed to be funny, or if it was supposed to be funny, I question why there's maybe this big dark comedy beat here when the rest of the film isn't exactly a comedy. The rest of the film is taking itself very seriously.
Oh, totally. Yeah. No, it is kind of strange. Also kind of made me wonder if I'm that good of a friend because I don't know. If I was in this situation, I would have called the cops. Like, sorry, I don't care if you're my friend or my brother. Like, I feel like this is something we shouldn't hide. Like,
oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, movie logic is a thing, right? It's kind of what it is. Yeah, obviously. So Alison Brie's mad because she walks through the house and well, she's upset at first because she doesn't want to go through with this plan. She wants to phone the police. But then the killer plays the footage on the TV, and she sees the shower footage, and that makes her drive away. There's a mild confrontation with Charlie as he kind of catches up to her at the window, and a good little character beat here where he actually, instead of like apologizing properly, the first thing he says is, well, not the first thing he says, but the first thing he says when she's like willing to listen to him is like, okay, first of all, where was that footage? Like he's more concerned about finding the footage and covering it up than he is about her feelings necessarily in the moment. So she drives off, but the killer's got a bear trap, or not bear trap,
like road spikes.
Yeah, road spikes. That's what I meant. Not bear trap. I know what bear trap is.
Car trap.
Car trap. There you go. Thank you. And she is the first one to go. But again, this is where some of the filmmaking kind of it's pretty good. I liked him kind of running up to the window. The killer running up to the window, kind of just for this sort of quick jolt of a scare. But she was able to text Charlie, so Charlie runs out after her. He's in the woods.
Well, do you think she texted her, or do you think the killer texted him?
Well,
because it looks like she takes out her phone and starts to do a text, but then I think that's when he runs towards her.
I mean, it's the exact message that she was typing. So I mean, yeah, the killer might have pressed send to lure him out there. I mean, true.
I don't think she really got to typing it.
No, she did. She typed in before you get to the window. Like, she's in the car. She typed out, the car. I got ran off the road.
I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch it.
The killer might have finished the text and pressed send, but she definitely started typing that sentence.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll stand in my ground on this time. I'm not moving.
I could be wrong.
But yeah, so he goes out there and dies as well. So this is the thing, like the deaths come pretty thick and fast. Like once they start, it's really just the last like 15 minutes here that we're talking about this stuff.
And I think this looks pretty cool because it's like it's all in the woods. It's very dark, but you have kind of like the like the blinking of the car lights, and then when he calls her phone or whatever, you just kind of see it like glowing in the like darkness, which obviously it's not her. But it all looked really cool, I thought.
Yeah, notably, it's like it's almost floating, but obviously someone's holding it. But it's obviously it's completely dark, so it just looks like it's thing. You're like, oh, that's not her. And he ends up tripping over her body, and then the killer runs up and hits him in the head with a hammer. It's quite visceral, which I like. I like a nice visceral kill. I have no problems with that. So that's pretty well done. And then there's some really nice shots later. There's a really good one actually. Basically, Josh gets a text from his brother's phone, which obviously is the killer, sending audio clips and then eventually footage of what happened. And he gets really upset at Mina. Mina's obviously upset by him finding out. That's when the killer, comes out of the house. Josh gets hammered in the head. And then when he's not...
Different version of a hammered.
Yes. And then when he's not dead yet, the killer turns the hammer around, so it's the spike side.
Yeah.
And puts that right in his forehead. There's a really nice shot here, though, actually, where he's kind of like standing in silhouette at the window. I thought it looked really good. There was definitely little bits of direction and little shots here or there. Moments of cinematography that I liked.
Yeah, and there's like some good stuff too, like with him like messing with them, and I think he was using like Charlie's phone to like send them like clips, like voice clips or whatever. So which it's like, so like again, like talking about like how earlier, like maybe about how some of that stuff doesn't work. I do like the way the killer kind of uses it to kind of like entice and throw people off. Like I do think that stuff was interesting. Like I could have used more of it, like maybe
see if that started earlier perhaps, where it was like a running theme of the film that he kept using their own stuff against them to like sort of divide and conquer. But it all kind of comes in a rush in the last like 25 minutes. It's all very quick. So so Mina kind of becomes the final girl and is hiding in the house. There's a nice little sequence where she like puts her shoe over the balcony to make it look like she's jumped down, so the killer sort of runs down after her, but then she like sort of appears from under the covers over by the bed or whatever. Really decent little period of scenes here. She ends up getting chased out into the forest. There's actually a really nice jump scare when she's running out the back door and the killer just kind of lunges at her. I thought it was a really well done little jump scene.
Yeah, I thought it was good. It's very like subtle. Like it's she runs out and he's kind of just like there. Like he kind of just comes out of the darkness, and it's like one of those things where I think they do a good job of like not focusing on it right away, and it's like a nice kind of scare that just naturally happens.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed that moment. And then she's running through the forest. It's very misty and all that, and it has this kind of shock ending where she just basically runs off the cliff and dies. Where he obviously knows this place well enough that he just kind of like, or at least at the very least, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he just sees her go down and goes, "Oh wait a minute, I better stop running." But because they kind of like, because earlier on with the dog, they were concerned that maybe he ran off the cliff. So I guess that kind of foreshadows that one of them is going to do that at the end. But
or even that's how that was like going to be their cover story for getting rid of Taylor's body.
True, yeah.
Saying like, oh, maybe he got drunk and fell off the cliff.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of foreshadowing with that, which is nice. I think though there was a point like 5 minutes before the end where I'm like, okay, he's just going to kill everyone and the killer's going to get away with it, which is fine. That's a nice dark ending. But because so much of the movie was about building up the characters and their relationship drama and the affair and all that stuff, it was kind of weird that not one character got to like either redeem themselves or like learn something about themselves because of going through this. Everyone kind of finds out and dies. it's basically so I don't know, maybe the her running off the cliff is a metaphor for her running through life without looking where she's going, just doing what she, I don't know, that's such a stretch.
But so one thing I thought was kind of funny is I kept thinking like, okay, so is the killer, so is this someone that is actually like a killer that wants to like hunt and kill people, or is he just like a pervert that wanted to tape people, but then once they found out about it and everything got out of hand, that he felt like, okay, I have to step in and take these people out? And then I was kind of curious about that, but then I feel like I got my question answered once the credits started rolling. Like, oh no, that's just what he does.
Yeah, no, the ending definitely shows us him doing this to other rental places. I did like the little montage of him kind of like taking all of his cameras and stuff out, and like where the router was and all the different things that he had snuck around the house to like capture everything. You see him take it all down, and then I do like that it never show his face. It's kind of this weird thing where it feels a little bit off in this movie, because I don't think this movie built up to the he's like the Shape. He's he's someone who we can never see, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like it in a vacuum. Like in a movie, I love when you get this feeling of the killer who's just faceless, because he's not someone that knows them. He's this random person. It's not important who he is. So there's a lot of him standing in silhouette or in shadow or whatever at the end.
Yeah, I don't necessarily mind it. I don't think it's anything new. Like, I feel like we've kind of had this several times. I mean, stuff like like The Strangers, or like was it that like horror movie that was taking place at like a Halloween uh like theme park kind of place or whatever, and the guy comes home and it was just like a random person.
Oh,
uh
Hellfest or Bloodfest? Is that one of them?
Is like one of those, like, I guess spoiler alert if you haven't seen that movie, but I feel like we've seen this a couple of times now, where it's like, hey, surprise, at the end it's like, it's just a regular normal guy you never would have suspected. So it's, I mean, I don't mind it in this movie.
Sure, yeah, I don't mind that either.
It's just not like a mind blow thing, like, whoa.
I think it just goes back to the last like 25 minutes feels like it's a different movie to the rest of it.
Yeah.
So, because there's a moment actually when they're walking back towards the house before everything really starts. I think it's when they're coming back from like looking for the dog, where Charlie's walking to the house and you just see like a figure step out in the background, and it's like the first time like a real horror moment happens, and I was like, whoa, that just came out of nowhere, like it was from a different movie, and that's kind of how I described the last like 25 minutes. It just all feels like it's from a different horror movie than this first like 2/3. So the credits play out. It's like all the cameras that he's had in different places in different houses. I did like as the credits were ending, or the main titles were ending before it got to the scrolling credits, that you see him sort of walk into the bedroom where someone's sleeping to kill them, and it cuts to black. Like, it was a nice little beat. It was fine.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of nice little ideas, and there's a lot of moments in this movie that I think the direction and cinematography are on point. But there's just a lot of, like, it's almost like in trying to be a really smart drama as well, it kind of it diverted its focus a little bit and wasn't really sure how to tie both those sides together. So
Sure.
The last like third feels very separated to me, even though I enjoyed most of it for what it was on its own, but it didn't necessarily feel like a satisfying conclusion to the movie that had been playing up until that point.
No, yeah, I totally agree with that. It's it's a shame, because if you were able to, marry those two halves a little better, and again, maybe just sprinkle, like, you don't even need a lot, like, just like a little bit more of like foreshadowing some horror stuff, and maybe like a few other scares, or like you were saying, the kind of like the POV shots, or just something to kind of get the paranoia and stuff up a little bit. Like, yeah, it could have been like a really cool, like, special little horror movie, instead of like just being okay.
And is Mina the right final girl? Like, wouldn't Michelle, like, because you could you could have more of an arc here a little bit, where Michelle, isn't sticking up for herself throughout the film, or something like that, and then her. So even if she fails at the end, ultimately, the idea being that her actually fighting back against the killer could be like the end of her arc. Everything about her husband kind of like belittling her, or not belittling her, but like taking her for granted, and not the infidelity and all that. Like, that's how you kind of try, you tie it in thematically to how like the main character ends up fighting back in the last act. It's that. I mean, it's not like a new thing, but the idea that they grow strength and they grow the will to fight, essentially, that they won't take shit anymore, kind of thing. Like, whereas at the ending when Mina's running from the killer, there's nothing that's developed that's led to this. There's nothing about it that feels like, oh, she's fundamentally changed from where she was at the start of the story because of the events, and because she's been hunted, to make her turn her into this, or to give her the fight to survive. Maybe it makes sense then that she loses and dies, but so that's what, when I say connect them together, that's what I really mean, is give make the character drama mean something, at least for one character when they're trying to survive at the end. And as it is, I don't feel that that's there at all. It feels so separate, even if the separate elements are mostly good. I say mostly because, like I say, I think the middle chunk is a bit weaker as far as the character drama stuff goes, but yes.
No, yeah, I agree with that. And then I guess maybe it's just not something that they're interested in doing, because I think the other guy that wrote it, Joe Swanberg, I think, I think he's like one of those mumblecore guys. So maybe they were like more concerned about like like oh like let's not do like the expected thing. Like let's have like some hard truths in here and like do that kind of like oh this is really how people might react in this situation or something. Like I don't know, maybe that's not what they wanted, but maybe it's not the best choice or something.
Yeah, yeah. And you're right. He's a mumblecore guy. He did Drinking Buddies and other stuff.
Which you can kind of feel because that's like what the first like half or so kind of has that feeling to it.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. So it's a shame. It's a shame that it's not better. It's funny. I wonder if the low expectations, because I'd heard enough people on Twitter and whatever saying that they really didn't like this and they thought it was really boring.
Oh, really?
So I wonder if
wow.
that kind of set me up to a point where I did appreciate the good qualities a bit more because I went into it kind of thinking it was probably going to just be complete garbage, which it isn't. I don't think it is complete garbage. I think it's kind of a
no, not at all.
well-intentioned mishmash of a movie.
Yeah.
is that a fair descriptor?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe I might be slightly more positive, but I don't disagree. Like, I think it is like it's still like a good watch. Like, I mean, maybe you don't have to rent out and rent it, but like, I think it's, it's a pretty good like movie to stream. Whenever it's available on, whatever service. And no, I think the main thing here is that the horror stuff is done. I'd say like really well. Like, I do like the look of the like because it does kind of turn into like somewhat of a slasher movie. Like I like the way the guy looks like with his like old mask.
Yeah, he's got a mask of like an old guy. It's like it's not quite this, but it's almost like when you get like an old president mask as like a disguise. It's kind of like that. He actually looks a lot like Adam from Dark, which if you haven't seen Dark, you won't know what I'm talking about. But he actually looks a lot like Adam from Dark with a mask. I will say that because you're saying how it essentially turns into kind of a slasher movie. It does like. I mean, I literally refer to someone as a final girl. There's a final girl at the end of the movie, which the first like 2/3 of the film don't feel like that type of movie at all. Which kind of proves the point we've been saying throughout. But yeah, you're right. It is, and at that point, I'm like, why isn't there more people to kill? Like more killings.
Totally. You had like one more friend that tagged along or something.
Yes, the dog survived though, just in case anyone's curious.
I was happy about that. Yeah.
The dog came running in at the end, and the killer's like, "Nah, I don't like killing humans. The dog can have the house."
Yeah.
There you go. So, yeah, that is The Rental. I guess we're at the point that we're going to rate it. Tim, what are you rating The Rental?
I think I'll give it a 6.5. I was kind of waffling between that and a 7, and I'll give it just the slight point lower, just because again, I mean, everything was done really well. It's just kind of hard to merge everything together. And yeah, I mean, we've already talked about it enough times, but yeah, it's a shame because yeah, if it was just a little bit more focused or came together better and had maybe some more horror elements, it could easily be bumped up like way higher than that. But yeah, instead it's it's by no means bad. Like I don't think there's anything that's necessarily like negative about it. It does handle a lot of things like competently. It's just maybe could have been a little better structured or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I think I'll go with a straight 6. I think it's well intentioned. There's some good ideas in there. There's some good moments. But for a debut, maybe this is like maybe movie number
That's
2 is
true,
going to bring it together, and the experience will kind of solidify Franco's craft and his expertise. I don't know. It's possible. It's possible. So there you go. That is the Rental. If you made it this far in the review on the YouTubes, please do put in the word bro. Why, you might ask? I mean, they didn't even mention it. But there's a scene in this where the two brothers like slotting the word bro into like every other word for a conversation, much to the the displeasure of their companions. But yes, so the word bro in the comments. I'm going to make Tim do his pose here. So Tim,
Okay.
I'm going to 3, 2, 1 and say pose. So make sure the top of your head's not cut off at the top of the screen. So 3, 2, 1, pose. All right, I guess that'll do. So yes, you can of course let us know what you think of the movie in the comments, along with the word bro, of course. You can of course like and subscribe and all that jazz, and like is very important on YouTube, of course, because it helps with people finding us, and it helps us grow our audience, and it's a nice free way to support us, as opposed to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, which you can do for a little bit of money and get some bonuses if you're into that too, as we mentioned earlier. So go to any of those things, all of those things, in an ideal world, but some of them's cool too. You can also, of course, get us on Twitter at Screams Midnight, and I think that's about it. So, yeah. Also, look out, because later in the month of August there will be a Streams After Midnight where me and Tim
Oh yeah, that's right.
are going to stream on a Saturday night, and amongst some Q&A, we're going to do a live viewing of The Boy. So look forward to that. But
I know I will.
but that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we will see you next time.